is a little too bright for me. Hello, hello. Hey, Dawn, how are you? How was your weekend? I am getting ready. Well, I'm already engraving some stuff right now, but I was thinking I found a channel that I like and I reached out to the creator. His name is ReelKillers, and he did a really good recap on the Dylan Tallman book. So I definitely want to listen to that and craft. And then whoever wants to pop in can pop in. Also, have you had any update on your waiting list? Just curious about that. And I'm glad in the meantime, sports is back on to kind of distract your mind. That's good. So, all right. Well, I am going to get this started. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the link to the full thing in the comments. I told this person I would love to collaborate with them as well. And he said, I'm glad I'm done with the Watts case. And I was like, you're not done. You'll be back. Let me know how the audio is. We're going to start it from the beginning. And this is Dylan Tallman's book, The Cell Next Door. And we're starting at the second book. And just let me know if it's okay. Let me also see if I can pull up. I don't know why it's taking a minute for this. All right, here we go. Carrie, can you hear it? I'm going to pause it for a moment. We are listening to Don. You can hear it, right? I think you told me you can. I'm playing it from my desktop, so I want to make sure you can hear it. And I'm going to kind of go back and forth to the laser that I got going on laser cam here. I'm designing something actually for Amy right now. They're going to be magnets, so you can hear it. Okay. So Carrie, what we're doing is you just got in here on time. We're going to listen to the second book by Dylan Tallman. I'm going to hit play, make sure that you can hear it. Well, if you can't hear it that way, we're going to do it this way then. Sorry about that.
I was in the Dodge Correctional Institution.
That's weird, John.
Still on a PO hold. Wisconsin parole and probation were holding me in a prison, though I was not yet sentenced to prison. They had me right where they wanted me. It was a terrible feeling to be in that situation. I was currently working on a book series with Chris. It was our God's Plan series. We had created a series of spiritual books. Chris and I had an outlet where we could vent through scripture, saying things that are not revealed, and interpreting the word of God. Chris and I were making progress working on our cases. In my case, possession with intent. The police never field tested what they identified as equity. In his case, things were very complicated. He had confessed 3 different times, in 3 different ways. However, the trauma from the tragedy brought him fear just to talk about it. We were slowly progressing in everything we did. 1, spiritually. 2, our workouts. 3, our cases. 4, knowledge. 5, wisdom. 6, understanding. Utilizing our time by staying productive while imprisoned was actually a good use of time. Chris and I just had a conversation about his case, and things were dicey. Over 50% of inmates are convicted, and the courts do not have 75% of the facts of their cases. Nowadays, 90% of criminal convictions are resolved by plea deals. Chris took a plea deal, and only a few months after his arrest. Usually these types of cases take years to resolve, especially when an entire family has been taken. Proverbs 25:2. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings is to search out a matter. We delved deeper into his case and made progress. Chris was beginning to open up to me about everything. On this particular day, we were discussing his case. I was looking for grounds for an appeal. So you're saying you took a plea deal before having a preliminary hearing? I asked. Yes, Chris replied. Are you sure you didn't waive your rights to a preliminary hearing? I asked. What do you mean? Chris asked. Did you sign something saying you don't want a preliminary hearing? I asked. I don't think so, he managed. Why did you sign a plea deal to the maximum punishment? I questioned. Colorado had the death penalty, and they told me if I didn't take the plea, they would give me the death sentence, he told me. That's basically a threat. Sign here or die, I replied. It felt like it, he said. I don't think you can do that, bro, I told Chris. I leafed through the Black's Law Dictionary and found change of venue. Bro, this says if your case has a lot of publicity, you can hear your case somewhere else. In your case, perhaps another country, I laughed. Or another planet, he laughed and returned. At least he could find humor in his nearly hopeless situation. My attorney told me to file ineffective assistance of counsel on him, he said. So basically, he told you that he didn't assist you in your best possible defense as required by law?
You can still hear it, right?
Also, it took these types of cases a couple of years to resolve. Yours only took a few months. That's not normal or even heard of, I told him. If I go back to court on appeal, they will transfer me back to Colorado, and inmates and people there want to me, which is why they sent me here, he explained. I am just not looking forward to reliving all this. It was the worst thing I have ever experienced, he said. I know, but do it for your parents. They love you and it would mean the world to your mom, I said. Yeah, it would. But these phone calls are recorded and I said too much over these phone calls, he admitted. You also had 3 different ways you said you did it, I exclaimed. Because I confessed, how will I come back from that? Chris asked. They threatened your life and got you. No, wait, bullied you into a guilty plea. You were an easy target. The husband, they needed this case under wraps for some reason, I conveyed. There was an election coming up, I think, he said. Now we can go over these circuit court trial errors all day, but it will come down to you fighting your cases. Again, if you get your sentence overturned, you will be back on trial, I said. Then the truth will have to come out. I don't want to cause my wife's family any more grief, Chris said. What about your family and their constant grief? I pointed out. All you can do from here is redeem yourself because you confessed your wife and kids in cold blood, I said. I didn't them in cold blood, Chris replied, slightly defensively. My wife came home and she knew I was having an affair. We got into a fight. She attacked me. I was simply defending myself. And then my daughter, standing down, the sergeant announced, interrupting our conversation. After she did her round, we continued our conversation. Afterward, I talked to Jezebel. I panicked, so I confided in her, and she said she would help me. She said, my wife medicated her heavily that night because she kept crying. After I my wife by choking her to death because she had a knife, something in me just died. It was an accident. I loved her with all my heart and still do. I just want to honor her memory and not ruin her memory. People want the truth, but I don't owe it to anyone. It's my family that I lost, and it's me serving life in prison. What else do I owe? Chris asked. You owe yourself a fair chance. Redemption at that. The truth shall set you free, bro. The ball's in your court. Only you can appeal your case. Only you can put truth out there, and only God can judge you, I explained. When they tell me to put my hand on the Bible and swear, I'm going to open it to where Jesus forbids oath. Chris laughed. Well, I'm not sure how that'll fly, but I'd love to see the reaction in the courtroom, I said. Anyway, I told my mistress what had happened, and she told me how to hide my wife's body. She said to bring the girls with. I was just on autopilot, like in shock. So I grabbed my younger daughter out of bed. She was asleep. My older daughter was awake and asking about her mom. I told her that she was in a deep sleep and Daddy was going to get her some help and wake up. Before we left, I had to check in with him. Mr. Tallman, you have a pass to CPSU, the sergeant announced. I was going to see my clinical psychologist. We'll finish this conversation when I get back, all right? I suggested. Yeah, sure, Chris replied. I have heard a lot about people's cases directly from them. This case was different from the rest. I have a discerning spirit and I was able to tell that he wouldn't fly in cold blood. However, what I know so far is that he killed his wife, but not intentionally. Next, I was going to find out exactly what happened to the girls. Until next time, Dylan Tallman.
Okay. So,
Chris is very lucky he didn't commit these.
Let's pause there for a minute. Again, this was done by ReelKillers on YouTube. I reached out to them and said, are you cool with me playing your video? And linking back to you, and they said that would be fine. So they did a really great job with this. I won't play the entire video. They have some of the book, because really you should not read a book word for word on YouTube. It's kind of against copyright law. I mean, I wouldn't. There's other people who might, but I don't. And this creator obviously feels the same way. He did not do it either. So I'm just going to play a little bit more of it. But if you want more, you can obviously go to their website and listen to it. But what do you guys think? He's now changing everything he said before. And Dylan is believing it. So what do you think? In the chat, feel free to give your thoughts on that. Starts to make you think, could someone else have been involved? Let's continue.
Heinous crimes in states like Florida or Texas. Yeah, he's in prison for the rest of his days. At least he isn't stressing about his date like inmates on Throw for less than what inmate Watts has done. Throw inmates are housed in a whole different building and are locked in most of the day, counting the days. The government won't take you out right away. They want you to adapt to prison life and get used to your daily routines. There does come a point when inmates get comfortable and begin to find a little purpose in prison life, finding things to look forward to. That is when the governor will issue that warrant and hand down your date, right when you think this ain't so bad and done got used to things, so you can anticipate and worry about your final moments on earth. Throw prisoners are typically incarcerated in solitary confinement, subject to more deprivation and harsher conditions than other prisoners. As a result, many experience declining mental health. Counting down the days, Ted Bundy was on Throw and was terrified and thought he could manipulate a stay by offering to tell the FBI about more victims, even willing to tell them where they were located in hopes to get more time on Earth. Bundy was too much of a peep, though. His last victim was 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, kidnapping her by her school in Lake City, Florida, on February 9th, 1978. Kimberly was going to meet a friend and head to class together. 2 months later, her body was found 35 miles away in Suwannee River State Park. Go figure. The man that had no remorse for well over 30 victims was afraid to die. Walking down the extremely long corridor, just told him, how could he just sit on such information? How could he be so complacent in his situation? He was sentenced to life in prison. He was never going home. I couldn't relate, but if it was me, I would be trying to get some type of fighting chance. The thought of spending life behind bars was just crazy because I had spent my whole life behind bars thus far. My entire time that I was incarcerated, all I did was look forward to going home. My end goal was to be released, and that's what motivated me. If I had no release date, then I would have nothing to look forward to and nothing to motivate me. It was both unsettling and admirable to think of what was motivating Chris. My clinical psychologist was beautiful, so it was hard to open up to her. Also, there has only been one or maybe two clinicians who have actually helped me, and it wasn't this one. But more recent, my court had been delayed once again because of COVID-19. I was stuck in this non-prisoner status longer, where I didn't have any of the privileges that other inmates had, but I had all the same bullshit rules to follow. Figures. I would be stuck in Dodge, so I was going to continue to make the best of it and finish the book project Chris and I had started. Perhaps we could both get back in court on appeal as well. It would be a lot of work. It would be a task more difficult than others, but not exactly impossible. The chapel was packed on this particular night, and we had 2 guest speakers. Our choir was really good. The choir was made up of Dodge inmates. This guy Fletcher was blind, bald-headed and black. He was the lead singer, and his voice was shockingly great. Chris and I sat in the back corner row. Jesus scorned the Pharisees and the scribe for always sitting in the best seats, for wearing the best robes, etc. We chose the humble road. Our minister, Chaplain Waketon, was once an inmate in a Texas prison for 7 years. I could relate to his past. His transformation was very admirable. The first speaker was a tall, skinny black guy. He was at the door greeting people as they were coming in. It was getting packed. That was when I spotted someone I knew from the streets. He was an enemy. We were on SOS, smash on sight terms. He looked over at me and began walking in my direction. I stood up and began walking toward him to show him that I was BTA, about that action too. We stood there face to face. You want to do this right here? I challenged him. This is the only place I'm going to give you a pass in. You're lucky we're in the house of God. I felt a hand on my shoulder pulling me back. It was Chris. Come on, go sit down, Chris said, as he stepped between us and directed my enemy in the opposite direction. We sat down and listened to the choir singing. I wrote it in red. Chris handed me a Bible and had it open to Ecclesiastes and pointed to chapter 7, verse 9. Do not hasten your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. I nodded my head to assure him that I received and understood the message. Who was that? Chris asked me. An old friend, I told him. The choir finished. Then the guest speaker gave a powerful sermon, and it hit me a little differently than usual. Some preachers' sermons are too dry for my taste, where I cannot relate. This guy, however, seemed to speak to me. The service was over and the COs were calling us unit by unit. My enemy was lucky that he was on one of the far units because he had our word and robbed one of my homegirls. In this dark, oppressive environment of prison, where every day is a challenge, loyalty takes a profound significance. Inmates stripped of their freedom and thrust into a world where trust is rare and danger is omnipresent, often forms bonds of loyalty that can be complex as they are intense. These relationships, forged in the crucible of incarceration, can define an inmate's experience behind bars, influencing their actions, their chances of survival, and even their future outside prison walls. Loyalty in prison is not just about camaraderie or friendship. It is often a matter of life and death. Within the rigid social structure of prison, loyalty can mean protection, a sense of belonging, and a shield against the ever-present threat of violence. But it can also lead to entanglement and dangerous activities, force individuals into compromising situations, and place them at odds with the very system that holds them. The prison environment.
I'm going to pause real quick, you guys. ReelKillers is the YouTube channel that we're listening to. Reached out to them and I said, hey, is it cool if I play your, I was about to call it a package, but that's what they call it in news. Is it okay if I play your video while I'm crafting today and talk about it? And they said, go for it. Cool. Said I would give them a shout out and push you guys back to their website. And also, I'm not going to play the full 3 episodes. This is the 2nd episode. So please go over there and check them out. I am working on some engraving and crafting while we listen to this.
With its unwritten rules and power dynamics, creates a unique setting where loyalty is both demanded and tested, which is one of the reasons why I'm surprised inmate Watts allowed Dylan to get close to him. Chris's experience taught him that loyalty can serve as currency for survival, but it can also mean that trusting the wrong one can lead to definite unaliving. However, loyalty in this context is not always straightforward. It can be driven by genuine emotional bonds, but just as often it is motivated by self-interest, fear, or coercion. The lines between loyalty, manipulation, and self-preservation are frequently blurred, creating a moral and ethical quagmire for those who must navigate this treacherous terrain. In prison, there's a psychological and emotional need that drives individuals to form these bonds. The need for belonging, the fear of isolation, and the constant threat of violence all contribute to the formation of loyalties that may not align with an inmate's personal values or long-term goals. The emotional weight of loyalty can be overwhelming, with inmates often forced to choose between their survival and their integrity. After Chris and I returned from service, we were talking about end of time prophecies. We often spoke of life after death and what it would be like being free from bondage. Chris knew that he was never going home. However, his spirit was free. He refused to allow his surroundings to define him. I, on the other hand, struggled somewhat with being caged in. I felt my incarceration. I hated it, and I still do now. How are you so humble with having life in prison? I asked. He sighed and said, because God has me right where he wants me. Perhaps I can help the people in here. If you win on your appeal, you can help many people. A lot of these guys in here have all the help they need. Your mom and dad are doing this time with you. I have put the gray in my mother's hair. If you don't do it for you, then do it for your family, I told him. Oh, I'm going to fight. My family's still looking for an attorney. They cost so much. One wanted 100,000 and others wanted even more. He said, perhaps our books will gross enough money. Then we could lock in with a good lawyer, I said. That money is all you. I just want people to believe in Jesus Christ, he said. I'll just put your cut toward whatever you tell me to. However, we don't have this thing fully finished yet, I sighed. I was not.
Now, I'm going to pause there and we can kind of chat about this for a second. I'm not sure what Dylan's thinking, but a person who's charged with a crime like this and behind bars, they cannot profit off of doing interviews, doing books, things like that. You know, they call it Son of Sam laws. So I don't even know if Chris was aware of that when he said, don't worry about my profit. You know, I just want people to believe in Jesus. I don't really know what they were thinking. Curious what you guys think about that. And it does, they might very well make some type of deal where the proceeds of Chris's half go to someone else he's connected to or related to. That is between Dylan and Chris. I believe it's in all states, Carrie, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know Colorado is one of those, you know, those states that always has some crazy stuff going on. So I do believe they are under that umbrella, but I can double check while we are still listening to this. If you didn't catch it, the other day, Amy from Pair Women Radio and I did an interview with Jamie. Jamie helped publish this book, and she cleared up a lot of rumors. One of the rumors was that Chris pulled this book, that Chris and his family pulled the book. They did not. Jamie pulled the book herself from Amazon because she says Dylan was not following the agreement they made on payment, because Dylan's behind bars when the book's written. Jamie is outside, handwritten letters back and forth. She's typing all of this out, editing it, designing the cover, doing all of these things. So she decided to pull it down because Dylan was not going to pay her. And she's like, no, we're done. So that's really what happened to the book. You can check out that interview under the live streams. And Dylan wrote this book out of spite because Chris and Dylan had planned to write a book called God's Plan, the 40-Day Devotional. apparently it was released for a very short period of time. And then Jamie says a letter came from someone representing Chris Watts legally, asked for the book to be pulled down, that Dylan didn't have permission to use Chris's writings, even though they said they had permission from Chris and they had permission from Cindy and Ronnie. They complied and decided we're not going down that road, and maybe they knew something, that we don't. So that was pulled. Dylan was upset by that. So then he wrote this book, The Cell Next Door. And there are 3 sections of it. So we will continue.
Author of 1 book so far, and I promised Chris I would get us published. We were continuing to work on a book series called God's Plan. I think we will be done or until they move one of us. I will stay here until they move you, or until you go home, he said. I really don't like writing, I admitted to him. Why do you write then, he asked me. Because I have to. I have been locked up my whole life. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a career, a 401, a house or kids. I've never even had the chance to file taxes. I looked down at the concrete floor and shook my head. This is all I have, so I can't fail at writing. It's this or the old life. I either sell books or I sell books, I admitted. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Huh? That's your picture. Say cheese. Oh, say here we go. Go to the corner of the wall. She's biting your shirt. Chris lives in a box now and reads his Bible. Inmate Watts, in my opinion, will forever live in regret. He will adapt to prison life like everyone else, but he will always live in fear. Inmates will never accept what he did to his family, and it's just a matter of time.
So you guys, that is not chapter 2, the second version of that book. And there are 3. So definitely go check out ReelKillers. Their page is great. They did a fantastic job on using B-roll and what they call generic video to string this together. Sometimes we see some of this awful AI video where people are using video that doesn't really match up to the situation of what's going on. But this person, you can tell, spent a lot of time on it. So please check them out. Yes, all 3 are on their YouTube page. And I wanted to throw this out there to you guys in the chat. It was something I was thinking about the other day. I've always been the type who does not think anyone was involved, but it's really got me thinking lately that if Chris took the girls out there like he said, natural instinct is to fight for your life. And it makes me wonder if Bella did try to get out of the truck and run away. Did she start hitting her dad when he was attacking Cece? Did she scream at him, no, don't hurt her, she's my best friend, what are you doing? It makes me wonder, was there someone else there to keep Bella from doing that, to keep Bella quiet in the car the entire time? Because I would think, yeah, there's nowhere to run, but your natural instinct would to be get the heck out of that truck and just start running and screaming for help. Even at the age of 5, I do think that that would be a possibility. But also, could she have been in shock, just watching what was unfolding and not really believing it's real and thinking it's a dream? Did they attempt to open the car door at any time once they arrived to where they were? Even when he was dealing with Shanann, and he said that they asked what he was doing, were they out of the car? How did he hear them so well? Ask, what are you doing with mom? That's just been like going on in my head over the past couple days. And no one will know the answer to that, because I don't think he is going to tell the truth about it, which is unfortunate. But I do wonder, did she fight back? Did she scream? Did she try to run? Was someone else there? I know a lot of people say yes, someone else was there, but I've been trying to remain just looking at the facts of the case. And for me, a cell phone ping is not enough evidence. I wouldn't pin just a cell phone ping on someone and say, oh, you were there for sure. 100% you were there. So I don't know. I kind of continue to go back and forth every couple of weeks. Oh, Carrie, I will pin you. Oh. Yeah, it makes me wonder though, did she attempt? Or was someone else in the car to keep her quiet? What I think is probably the worst part of it all is you saw the pictures of how many steps there were. Did he make Bella go with him up there, or did he keep her locked in the car? He claims he kept her locked in the car. And I get what you guys are saying. I'm just thinking your natural instinct is to fight for your life, no matter whether you think someone can hear you or is going to help you. That's just like naturally what you would do, I think. And these girls watch like Disney movies and things like that. You know, I'm sure they've seen princesses get captured and things like that. So it doesn't seem too off to think that she might try to fight back or do something. But that's just been popping in my mind a lot. And I'm sure the Rusick family also sometimes thinks that. But maybe she was also just in total shock. But that is all I have, you guys. Please go check out ReelKillers on YouTube. Great channel, and hoping to collab again with them soon. I am working on more crafting this week. Trying to balance out YouTube with the crafts. And it's been a little tricky, but we're getting it done. Mother's Day is here, so I've got some Mother's Day. Bye, Carrie. See you next time. Mother's Day orders coming up and things like that. So that is what I'm working on. I hope that you all have a fantastic week, and I will see you next time.